I'll tell you when. And we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Power Talk. It is Thursday, May 28th. I have to remember what day of the week it is. Memorial Day threw me off. I've been saying the wrong day all week. For those of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Chauntel McKenzie. I am the founder and principal strategist of the PowHER Network. And during this time, with so many of us at home, we decided to go back to our roots. 4 years ago, when we first launched the PowHER Network, it was really about bringing women together, like Lakeisha, like Jackie, who I had yesterday, Unica last week, and allowing them to tell their stories. And these are all women in my network that I can text and I can call and I can reach out to and that I've made personal connections with. And I'm thankful for that. And so, that's one piece. We call that our social architecture piece of the bringing of people together for the betterment of life as a whole, especially for women. And then in addition to that, we also have a full marketing and design studio. We do business startup coaching and strategic planning. And there's a ticker going across the bottom that you can connect with myself and Lakeisha. And now today I have my esteemed guest, licensed professional counselor, Lakeisha Russell, who I just met. It's probably been almost 4 years ago that we met. And I'm gonna take this earring off in case it hit my AirPod. And immediately upon meeting her, I could just tell that she was something special and that she really had care for what it is that she does. And at the time, you were working in the school system as a counselor for elementary age children, and then you're also a mother. And I just love how you approach mental health for women, for children, for the entire family ecosystem. And with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, I really didn't want to end the month without having an actual counselor on, because I'm a huge advocate of therapy. And so that being said, let's just get into this conversation. How are you?
I am doing good. This week is busy just because of Mental Health Awareness Month, but I always say busy in a great way, because I'm just so honored and humbled when people are asking me to be a part of something talking about mental health, because I'm very passionate about that.
I was telling you before we went live that one of the things that I love that you've been focused on, and it's very relevant during this time where we're in the house all together for more hours than we've probably ever been with our school-age children or spouses, is that you have really been focused on how I may be feeling, maybe affecting my children, or how I may be feeling, or how my day is being translated through my treatment or my conversation with them. And so can you just give some tips? Because I know that there are days that I feel like I'm going to rip these braids out one by one, between trying to homeschool, build the business, take care of the husband, the way they eating through the cabinets, girl. It's like the groceries can't stay, the paper towels can't stay, like everything is crazy.
Yeah.
And hi to everybody out there. Tell us hello. We want to see you. We want to know who's out there. And so give us some tips on when we feel like we're at our wits' end, like what should we be doing?
Yeah, I love that. And, I want people to understand too, like I'm human, like I'm a therapist. So yeah, I know these skill sets, but sometimes your girl over here has to take a step back too, because I'm about to pull out my locks and all that. What I tell and encourage parents is like keeping those boundaries, right? Because just because we're working from home doesn't mean the work is stopping. Right now, we just have to pivot the environment we're in to do the work. And so maintaining those boundaries, having that conversation with your kids or your spouse or whomever up front. Hey, mom is working or having these meetings from this time to this time. So it's very important, that you can't interrupt right now, but once I'm done, you can come with whatever you need. Or even for parents, I say, we always want to have our kids take a time out. It's okay for you as a parent to be like, I need a time out. Let me go in my car. Let me go in the bathroom or in my room to regroup, because again, what we don't realize, I think, as parents is we may set the precedent like, you should handle your emotions like this. But at the end of the day, our kids are watching, so we can kind of forget what we're saying to them. But if they see us doing something different, what y'all think they're going to do? They're going to do what they see you doing. So, it doesn't really matter if you're saying something, but it has to line up with your behavior as well. So I encourage parents be consistent with those boundaries as well. Just pivot that working from home mentality and maintaining those boundaries, taking your time out, and, you know, just doing something even in the middle of that day to refuel you, even if it's something for like 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe you just like do a quick meditation or do a quick prayer, something to like woosah yourself.
I hide in the bathroom. Does that count?
Yes. Because unfortunately, I think for us as moms, like the bathroom is the only place. Now, some kids might be cracky enough to like put on you or something, but hey, if the bathroom is your space, go there.
Or I'll go check the mail. Like, wait, they be like, where are you going? I'm going to check the mail. Like, I just need a minute.
Yes.
And so, you know, I think that we would be remiss if we did not talk about the state of the country right now and the mental health effects of first COVID and the disparity in how it's impacted, you know, marginalized communities and communities of color versus Caucasian communities, and just the mental health aspect about that. And so, you know, I have a lot of white friends who I love dearly, but they're just not being affected the way that I'm being affected, meaning like the daily calls of someone dying or someone being sick. And how do we, from a therapeutic perspective, because a lot of them call authentically looking for answers or to be support. And sometimes I'm at a loss for words. You know, do you have any thoughts about how do we speak to them in a way that brings more of an understanding while caring for our own mental health through this?
Yeah. And I think when you have those individuals of another ethnicity or culture that's willing to reach out, right? And just taking a step back, what does that look like? And even asking them, okay, aside from reaching out to me, how else do you think in your circle you can start with getting more people to understand just what Black people and brown people are going through right now? And I think it's okay to ask them that, because, you know, it's not you giving those stories again and reliving that trauma that you just saw or heard about, but just putting the onus more on them. Because oftentimes I think us as Black people, we carry that weight to be like, I have to educate them to understand how to be an ally or how to do this or do that. But no, sometimes I think we have to take that burden off of us and put it back on them, put that accountability back on them and reflect it to them to be like, hey, how can you start making others aware within your community and your culture of what is really going on in a matter where they aren't like, oh, you know, and we're not dismissing all lives matter, right? But at the state we're in right now in our country, Black lives seems to be the one that don't even matter at all.
Right. Agreed. And, you know, and you mentioned the word trauma, and this is another conversation I often have with my friends of various cultural backgrounds, is the trauma that still is sick in the African American community, based on the history of slavery, based on the history of racism, systemic racism, based on, you know, the pay disparity, the housing disparity, the healthcare disparity. And so many things that we just think, well, that's ignorant, that's stupid, that's this. It's really attached to mental health. And so let's talk about, what do you say? Because I know as a professional, you can see it. When you see the trauma, like, how do I gently guide my girlfriend towards, because I'm always like, girl, have you found a therapist? And I don't know if that's the best way. I'm like, you need to, because I love my therapist. You want my therapist number? But, you know, for a lot of times that's not well received, because they looking at me like it's nothing wrong with me. So what's that talk track look like where I am making it look advantageous and almost sexy to like call a therapist?
I love that question. And I think that is like a constant question I'm being asked. Like, how do I tell my friend, maybe it's time for you to see a therapist? And you know, to be totally honest, if you got that relationship with your girlfriend where you be like, sis, now I think it might be beneficial for you to talk to somebody. I say roll with that. But then if you have that friend that might take it and receive it a different type of way, then maybe sharing your experiences with, you know, what did therapy specifically do for you? And how can you see that change? Or even, you know, if they say something, because oftentimes I hear clients that I work with be like, people are like, hey, so-and-so, you seem so different. Like, it's just a flow about you. You're doing things differently. And they be like, it's therapy. Like, I've been working on my stuff. So I say to people, like, the best way to motivate somebody for therapy is talk about how it has changed you. And what does that look like? And even if they're acknowledging a change in you, that's when you can openly be like, girl, that was therapy.
For real, for real. I mean, the thing is what, you know, I can say personally for me, there's been times in my life, I have very high expectations of myself. I'm constantly moving. And so there has been times in my life that I've had to just admit to myself, like, I think you're a little depressed. And I remember having a mentor saying to me that my 25% looks like a lot of people's 100%. So I have to acknowledge that just based on how I'm wired and how I'm able to keep moving despite what's happening because of these expectations and that I have in myself and the drive that I have, that I still need to acknowledge that I'm off. And so even just noticing and articulating to my husband, I'm off. Like, I'm off right now. I can tell that I'm not sleeping. You know, I can usually tell by like clutter in my bedroom. I usually can tell by, you know, how social I feel like being with my girlfriends on the phone or when we were able to just go out in public. And so, you know, one of the things that I would say, because a lot of women assume, well, why would Sean have bouts of depression? Or why would she deal with anxiety? And it's like, have you seen my life? You know, like, like it's not a respecter of persons. Like I get anxious about things just like other people. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's about sharing the experience. And what therapy did for me, because I would just beat myself up. And so I just want to share this, is that my therapist said to me, about a particular situation, did you go into this maliciously? Like, did you do this saying, I'm just going to do this and it's going to just tear my family up and it's going to cause us financial hardship and it's going to cause my husband and I to have, you know, a rift? Or did you go into this thinking like, this is the best thing that I know to do right now for my family? And that was so freeing for me.
Yes. I love that. And, you know, it just makes me think, right, when people are looking at us from the outside, right? I think would think, Sean is so strong. She's amazing. She's a go-getter. Like, why is she depressed? Why she got anxiety? Like, she crushing everything she touches. But people not understanding our experiences. And oftentimes what I tell people, you know, from our childhood, those experiences stay with us until we've actually worked through the root of those things. And so for you, your anxiety that might come about, like, think back to your childhood. Like, what was so anxious about doing some of the things you're doing now that happened in childhood that you didn't quite work through? So people understand. You know, our anxiety, it doesn't care who you are, what you are either. You know, it is real for those people experiencing it. And your anxiety can be based on different things, just like trauma can be. You know, and anxiety can be a symptom of a trauma experience. For people just to keep that in mind, that not everybody's trauma is the same, or what they're dealing with as far as depression or anxiety looks the same.
But your trauma is your trauma. And so don't let anyone guilt you because you haven't experienced the level and depth of trauma that they have. Because some people will say, girl, why you depressed, or why you have anxiety? I was, you know, unfortunately, you know, molested or had a domestic violence situation, or, you know, I dealt with murder or this or that. And it's like, but it's almost, you know, my truth is my truth. My life experience is my life experience, and it doesn't make it any less relevant. So how to say that in a therapy, because, you know, to your point, people were like, well, you don't have a right. It's almost like you don't have a right to feel how you feel. You don't have a right to have, and I feel like, you know, we all dealing with some mental health issues in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so what do you say to those people who are really judging and perhaps not even dealing with what they got going on themselves?
And I think the good thing would be for people to check themselves and be like, if you shared your story, how would you want to be judged? Or if at all? and give that person that same grace. Because again, you said it, you hit it right on the head. Your trauma is your trauma. You know, trauma is different for each person. It's whatever that experience distressed in you at that moment is your trauma. It has that lasting impact on you. You know, I always give this example. You know, my car was broken into last year. And you know, and so us as therapists, we call like the big T's and little T's for our trauma. You know, and that was a little T trauma of mine. But anybody else probably like, Lakeisha, but you know, they ain't take nothing but some clothes. You gonna get to Goodwill, girl, you good. But you know, and I thought I was good until I start driving back down my alley coming from work. And all of a sudden I start having these thoughts in my head. What if they come back? What if they try to break into the house? You know, like all of those negative thoughts. And for me, that event was traumatic. Now, for the next person, they might, you know, walk away from and be like, whatever, I'm good. They didn't steal a car, whatever. That was traumatic, and nobody can tell me how to experience that event that I experienced.
But how do you get, and so how do you get past that then? What do you say to, you know, to patients or clients or, you know, people that you're providing therapy for? Because there has to come a point that we work through our trauma and hopefully get to healing.
Yes. And for that is people understanding, first acknowledging the impact that this trauma had on you. And what does that look like? And I always ask people, are you ready to do that work? Because I'm not going to lie, Sean, you know, if you have a trauma history of 10, 12 years and you just now seeking therapy, it's not going to happen overnight. You know, through that process of having you relive some of your traumas with me, you might be triggered, and then you feel like I'm regressing. No, you're not. That's the whole point of this trauma. So one thing I'm training is trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy. Focus on those traumas. And a part of that is having people share those traumas and relive them and trigger it, because the more you tell your trauma story, the more desensitized you get to it. So those emotions, those feelings, those triggers that once were instinctually triggering you will no longer be that case. So now you can actually process, what does that mean for you? How does that trauma show up in your life, and how you filter things in your thoughts with people?
That's good, because, you know, it makes me think about, you know, when my husband and I went through marital counseling a few years ago, and we were in a really tough space. And at the beginning, it felt like it was ripping all these scabs off. It felt like, you know, it felt like, oh my God, it's like tearing us up. And, you know, the therapist would say, like, when you leave here, do not talk about what we talked about, because y'all not going to be able to make it through it. It's only going to get worse. And it was like, it took a long time of it getting worse and actually talking through the years. You know, it's like, we didn't get here overnight, to your point, so we're not going to get out of here overnight. But to be willing to do the work. And then there was a certain point where we were like, start and stop. And we finally got to a therapist that said, you guys never finish. You never see it through to the end. You never see it through to the end where it's actually different and better. And it wasn't until we did that we got better. And I think that, you know, I use that as an example for marriage, but that is true, I think, for any course of therapy.
Yes, it is, because honestly, how is it beneficial if you stop and then start, right? And really working through it and coming to your therapist every week, or however you do it, you know, for that therapist to really see that progress and point it out. Because oftentimes what I find is, you know, even some of my clients I see weekly, they feel that there's no progress being made. But then that's where I can interject and be like, but look, remember when you first came in my door, you were just crying the whole session. Like every week, the whole session. And now you get to the point you can share your story and you're not even cry, you know? So you have a different filter on how you're experiencing it. But to your point, you got to be consistent with that work.
And be okay with the because it does not feel good for someone to be that honest with you, or to require you to be that honest with yourself. Because I think for so many, it's easier to stay broken. It's like, because I know broken is comfortable for me. Broken is this place that I live in. TD Jakes preached a message just this past weekend, or I watched it. I don't know if it was new. And he was talking about the man who couldn't walk and how the disciples healed him. And he was saying, like, now what happens is once you're healed and you can walk, now you're responsible for getting yourself home. Now you're responsible for finding a job. Now you're responsible. Now all those people that you had that were enabling you and that were helping you because you had this trauma and this disability, which mental health issues can be debilitating. Now, once it's fixed, there's this expectation of you going out into this world as this fixed person. And what does that look like?
Yes. Oh, that is so, so good. I'm so glad you used that example, because I think people often take like, okay, the healing should be somebody else's to do, so they shouldn't be held accountable. But you just did something so great, right? Your trauma may not be your responsibility. You know, you weren't a part of what happened to you. Now that you're aware of what it's causing in your life and how you're thinking about things, how you're behaving, that healing is on you. That's your responsibility now. And what are you willing to do to heal from that? And what I often find is when people are so used to living in chaos, right? When they start to do better, that little part of them be like, this ain't normal. So let me go back and all this mess, right? And so you have all this stuff, all this junk coming about in your life again. But when you are consistent and really doing the work and pushing yourself and being vulnerable and realizing this ain't okay for me to live in this chaos and to be causing all this whirlwind in my life, because that doesn't help me heal. That keeps me broken. And when you see people really doing the work and making the unconscious conscious, because oftentimes our behaviors are unconscious because we aren't aware yet, unless somebody's pointing it out, or you are working with a professional that's like, have you thought about so-and-so? They're like, I didn't think about it like that. But now that seed is planted, so they always got that at the forefront now, how they behave and the expectations of that and making it conscious. So I love doing the trauma work though with people, just because it's all about making that unconscious conscious. And now that you have the tools to help you make it conscious, how are we going to be consistent with that healing, regardless of what scabs are being pulled up, what breaks are being pulled up? Like, how are we going to really do that work? And to go back to the sense of even us as parents, right? When we do that work, that releases it off of our kids to have to do that work.
I love this thought of making the unconscious conscious. And I know that this isn't a session, and if this is too broad, but what could you say quickly to someone watching this about a couple of steps they could take to make the unconscious conscious? Like, how can they acknowledge something, that's, like, and so it's really about limiting beliefs. And so how do you make that unconscious conscious?
Yeah, I always encourage people journal, because when you journal right there in that moment and reflecting on a situation, and you be like, and I said such and such, blah, blah. When you're able to put that all out there because you don't feel those emotions anymore, now you can reflect and read it. You'll be like, you know what? I was tripping. What part did I play in that? Or even just thinking about different situations in your life. How did you respond to that? And what outcome did you get? And if that outcome wasn't anything of value, then you got to start realizing, okay, I have to start realizing what role am I playing in this that I might not even be aware of. Or if you have friends in your life that are telling you, sis, you need to stop doing that because X, Y, and Z. Like, I've noticed over the years, you always do that in a situation. Take note of those things, but allow yourself to self-reflect, because, it don't mean anything if people are telling you that, or even if you notice that and you're not really willing to change that and make that conscious for you.
I love that. I've been reading a few books lately. I love Dr. Caroline Leaf about, she's always talking about the brain and, eat yourself, smart. And And then there's a book that I've been recently reading, and it's Think, Grow Rich for Women. And so basically the Napoleon Hill book that was written in the 30s, a woman got permission from his family to update it for a woman's perspective. And so there's a chapter in the book that she's talking about how many negative thoughts that we have, per second, it's thousands. And one of the things they said, and I want to know, what do you think about this, is they said, if you're in a place to do this, when a negative thought comes upon you, write it down. So journal it, like you said, but then it said, rip that paper up and throw it away, because there's something about writing it down and balling it up and throwing it away that can help you dismiss that thought. What do you think about that exercise?
I totally agree. And what I do with people, I call it don't feed the ants. So don't feed the automatic negative thoughts. And so that is, that person writing that down, and how powerful it is to actually get it out your head. Because think about it, don't write that stuff down. It just ruins occupies space, and you're constantly thinking about that. And now it's leading to another negative thought and another negative thought, which got to get you down a rabbit hole. But being able to that, ball that up, rip it up, burn it, whatever, it's like poof, it don't even matter. And now bring in that positive thought, though, because we done dissected that one, but let me tell you what they say, I think it's 6, it's 6 negative thoughts, and you have to do like one positive just to counteract those 6. Right around the corner, that's when you have to have that positive thought right there to put in place of that one that you just killed.
That's good. So John said he's wondering if we can teach empathy in elementary school, that he thinks if we change culture and would create grace and mercy for each other as more organic and natural, then we'd feel more comfortable in just saying what I'm going through is the truth versus having shift and saying this is my truth. So what do you think about that teaching, since you work with school age kids, about teaching empathy at a young age?
First, it has to start with teaching our parents and the educators that work with them. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to what is being shown in front of them, what actions are being displayed. If you have an educator working with kids and they show no grace or empathy or compassion for that child and what they might be going through, how do you think that child then internalizes that? Oh, all people are bad. The world is not good. It's not safe for me. I can't share what I'm going through because they dismiss it. So it really, I think if we start and focus on the parents, because again, raising them in the home, and with educators who are that second handoff to our babies and educating and rearing them, I feel like we would have a better chance of more kids having empathy, but it has to start with the parents and the educators.
Something that came up yesterday with my talk with Jackie, and we were talking about the Global Gift Registry that I'm a collaborator with her on to help, homeless women and children, is we talked about how for so many of us, the homeless become invisible. And, I thought about that as a parent, because I have 4 children, but one of my daughters, when she was younger, she's 11 now, would always be like, well, can't we stop and give them some food? And can't we stop and give them some money? And it was just on her heart. And, especially growing up in Chicago, I feel like that I've gotten desensitized to people, panhandling on the street. And we're even taught in school in Chicago what the average panhandler downtown Chicago makes a day. And it was like, there's a lot of money, kind of thing, like that's taught in life skills. And so I don't want her to lose that empathetic part of her, but I also am trying to teach her to be smart and to be safe. And so I'm, as a parent, how do I balance that?
Yeah. And I would ask you, what is something that she can do that might not be really huge, but still feeds that part of her of feeling like she has done something to help this community out, and one that you feel that she will be safe doing and would be okay with you doing? So I would ask you to think about that. What's that thing that she can do for them that you feel comfortable and okay with her doing?
That's good. Someone asked, do you have tips and resources when searching for a therapist?
Okay, yeah. So there's a great directory out there now, Therapy for Black Girls, created by Dr. Joy, who's a psychologist in Atlanta. Psychology Today, Good Therapy, Better Help. And I always say people can like email me or DM me, and I'm always handing out lists. But one thing that I would encourage people to think about is think about why you're seeking therapy, what you're wanting to get out of it. And, think about some of the qualifications you're looking for a therapist. If you're looking for a therapist that treats anxiety or depression, look for that kind of therapist. Ask those questions. Ask that therapist, have they worked with anybody with anxiety or depression? What's their success rate? It's okay to ask those things. What tips and tools did they find most helpful for them? And sometimes people are always asking, so how long do I need to be in therapy? And across the board, it's just dependent on you and that therapist and what that therapist believe would be beneficial for you. And keeping in mind, it's okay if you're looking for a Black therapist or a therapist that looks like you. It's okay to have that as your top thing. It's okay if you prefer a male therapist or a female therapist. Those are okay things. But I would say get a list, and maybe what I could do, Sean, is create something over the weekend and send it to you, and you can put it on your network or something, just for people to ask when they are looking, and then have that list of the different resources that they can tap into to look for a therapist.
That's good. I meet so many people that tell me, I went to therapy and it didn't work. And I mean, I know we talked about this earlier, because a lot of times, and I feel like this when they say I had a marketer and it didn't work, and it's like, you didn't give it time to work. And so I feel the same thing about therapy. It's not this magic bullet. It's not, there was this play in Chicago, and I don't know if it came to Milwaukee when I was little, but the commercial always cracked me up as a kid. It was called The Beauty Shop. And one of the lines was this is the beauty shop, not the magic shop. And I feel like people think about that with therapy and marketing. You got to give it a minute. But I meet people that say I went and I didn't like it, or I felt like it didn't work. How do you know if you're with the, and you just gave some good questions, but once you choose the therapist, how do you know if this is the right therapist for you?
When your therapist is allowing you to share your story. So if your therapist is doing too much talking, you need to have that conversation. Hey, is this my session or yours? And knowing that if it feels safe and judgment free, and if you go in there and you're and the person might say something to you that might seem a little judgy, it's okay to have that conversation. Because I think some people might be afraid to have those conversations with us as a therapist. But I want to tell y'all, this is what we do for a living. We do this day in and day out. We are here for the tough conversations. And it's okay if you disagree with something we might say, or you're feeling a certain type of way about the space being provided and you don't feel that it's benefiting you. It's okay to have those tough conversations, because oftentimes I find people be like, well, I just stopped calling them. I ain't even do, and I'm like, well, what was the issue? That's well, I felt like they were always judging me because they would say this or say that. And I'm like, did you feel okay to share it with them? And of course they didn't, because they felt judged. But, that's where I was encouraged of, it's okay to share with them, while meeting with you, I felt this type of way, because we shouldn't be dismissing your feelings, especially we here to hold your feelings, for you to be vulnerable and to grow emotion wise. So I think people reflecting on those things of knowing, and then to just sometimes you just don't click, right? And that's okay, but it doesn't have to stop the journey. You don't stop it. Just like with a primary care doctor, if you meet with one and y'all just don't click, you don't stop. You keep looking and doing what you got to do until you find that one. That's the same with a therapist. Not everybody meets their therapist on the first go around. Some do, but not everybody. And it's okay to continue to look until you find that right fit. Some people with me, they'll be like, just talking to you over the phone, I just knew, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So you with that therapist, you just know it's the right therapist by how inviting they are, the tone of their voice.
What you just said is so good, because stress kills. Stress is a known catalyst for heart disease, for diabetes, for high blood pressure. There's so many diseases and things that erode our body. I had a tumor in my chest. I had a ulcer. I had all of these things that had no medical connection to them. And I was like, it was stress. was stress. And so to the point of how you won't give up on a primary care provider if you have pain or if you have something going on with your physical body, you have to take your mental health just as serious, because it is the silent killer. You will be internalizing all of this anxiety and stress, and it is eroding at your body, because as a man thinketh, so is he. So as you are thinking all of this negativity and all these toxic poisonous thoughts, all of that stuff is going through your body.
Yes, that is such a good point. And I think oftentimes people don't realize their mental health because, again, I think it's that stigma attached to it, right? So if I'm stressing out, if I'm having anxiety or feeling depression, what does that say about me? You know, am I not strong? Am I weak? You know, or for us that are faith believers, right? Do I not believe in God if I believe there's something wrong with me emotion-wise? And it doesn't mean none of that, because God has made, you know, not to get too preachy on folks, but you know, just how he made us, you know, like all of it has to align, our spirit man, our physical man, our mental health man, like all of that connects and makes us the best us that we can be to fulfill whatever he's called us to do. And if one of those things is off track, let's be honest, how can you really go forth and do what you're purposed to do here on this earth in excellence?
Right. So let's do some switch to parenthood, because I want to talk through you. I have recommended you to parents who have children that, you know, that either the system has, you know, put a stigma on them, or they're just having a hard time because of behavioral issues with their kids, and or, you know, just all kinds of things that are happening. And so I just want you to give some wisdom, some comfort, some words of encouragement or recommendations to, you know, parents that there is tension and anxiety in the home because they are looking at this child and not sure because what to do to help the child be better. And I think there's a stigma attached to that, because then you feel like as a parent, you're failing.
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. And I think just for parent, like this parenting thing ain't easy. It didn't come with no manual, child. Because listen, I ask people to understand, I got 2 kids, right? So I got 11 and 12-year-old, you know, one about to be a teenager, the other one is a teenager. So listen, I understand the struggle, but I think just understanding, you know, as long as you're showing up, doing the best you know how, that's what matters. Give yourself grace, because this parenting journey is that, a journey. We're learning something new about our kids every day. And I feel like us being in the safer at home orders, we are learning so much about our kids that we probably didn't even realize, you know, and start taking a step back. You know, maybe you have to rebuild and reconnect with your kid and think about the behaviors that you're seeing. You know, a behavior is always a sign for some unmet need. So maybe just really thinking about, you know, what is it that they're seeking? I get parents when they're about to do their like Zoom calls or meetings or whatever it is, here that kid come, mom, can I go outside? Mom, woo. And you know, the kid wasn't thinking about that. So what can you do prior to your Zoom meeting to make sure your kid has your undivided attention right then and there to help them or ease them?
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Because I can say, you know, I have a son who's 18 and transitioning to college soon, and his personality is very different than his older brother. He's more introverted. He's kind of off on his own, and he was like my cuddle kid, and he was my kid that would like hang out. And then all of a sudden, it just felt like he didn't want to have anything to do with me. And so I was like, can we go to the movies? Can we do this? And be like, try to buy his favorite things. And I mean, it'd be like, I would be driving him to school and it's like, do you not like me anymore? Like, what is going on with you? And do you need to see a therapist? I mean, like, I'm going through like all of these things, but he's like, Ma, chill. Like, you know, he's not hanging out. He's not doing anything crazy. He's home. That's just how he's wired. He likes his quiet time. And I had to step back and remove my ego and not make it about me and figure out how to connect with him where he is and how he's wired. And because I was going to push him away with all of my theatrics of trying to have the same relationship with him that I had with his older brother. All of my children require a different me.
Yes, I love that you gave that example, right? All of our we won't be able to parent the same way, because when we try to do that, then we start to see those rifts or those disrupts within our relationship. And now, right, we're taking that on. Is it me? What am I? You know what I mean? Like, do they not? What's going on? You need to see a therapist. And it's like, no, ma'am. That's how they are. Now, of course, we know like there might be like red flags or warning signs with certain things, with isolation or withdrawing and things like that. But if your kid is just that kid that's shy or just introverted, that like that space to themselves, ain't nothing wrong with that. At all.
Right. And I just have to find things that interested him. You know, if it interested him, he was down, you know, and I watched his grades, and I'm at every parent teacher conference, and I'm doing all the best things that I know how to do. But I remember his brother left for college, and I said, so now that your brother's gone, are you going to be my sidekick? And he's like, I'm nobody's sidekick. And so I was like, well, will you be my road dog? So it was just about like understanding like how his mind works. Like, girl, I'm not your lackey. I'm not going to keep ignorant with you. And that's then I have another mommy example. My youngest daughter has an iPad, and we're connected in the cloud. So she changed her dad's name, my husband's name, to Everyday Person. And so I look at my phone, and my husband's name in my phone is Everyday Person. And so I said, Danielle, why did you change dad's name to Everyday Person? And she said, because he's my everyday person. He's always there for everything. And I said, well, what about me? She said, well, you're my other parent. Like, let him find your Zoom codes then, and figure out the homework and get you some new crops and all that good stuff. But, but the thing is like, I didn't take it personal. Now it's like a running joke in the house, but I didn't take it personal. And so we're talking about, this is light. And like I said to you before we went live, I realized that there are some parents going through way more drastic things, like how they're going to feed the kids, how they're going to clothe the kids, how, they lost their jobs. And so to the parents who are under an immense amount of pressure right now watching this, what can we say to them?
Woo. You are not alone. Is there a tribe that you can tap into? Somebody, like some group, because sometimes we just need to know that we aren't the only one. Because I think when we go through it, we feel like we're the only one. I know I'd be like, ain't nobody else going through what I'm going through. And they'd be like, right. They're like, no, it's other parents going through what you're going through. I'm like, right. But I think it's just reaching out to those people, within our community, or maybe finding that support group to know, you aren't alone, and I'm experiencing this layoff or this furlough, or, struggling to feed my kids, and I don't want to be looked at as a bad mom. And so again, giving yourself that grace. I don't think none of us expected this to be what it is right now, what we're going through. And for just those parents, man, my heart goes out to them, because this isn't easy, right? You probably were already struggling as a parent, just to connect with your kids and to make sure you're there and show up. And now you're home with them and child, so just giving yourself that grace and reaching out to other people. And those of you, I want to say, who have mom friends, who have parent friends, whoever, check on them. Just, even if it's a text, hey girl, just checking on you, make sure you and the kids doing okay.
Right. And I've said this quote every day, probably for the last week, that if you are in a position that you are more fortunate than others, then it's incumbent upon you to build a longer table, not a taller fence. And so I think that there's a lot of shame involved, because, and I had a town hall a couple of years ago where we were talking about it was when the young men ended up dying at the lakefront. They went down the hill in the car and this and that. And I had a town hall just talking about what we can do as parents, with our kids, and and there were mothers in there saying, stay out the clubs and stop doing this. And I was just like, me being in the club on Sunday doesn't have anything to do with me being a good parent, or on the club on Saturday has nothing to do with me being a good parent on Sunday or Saturday morning. Like one is not the antithesis of the other. And so I think that it's so critical because there's some shame involved in that, of not being able to take care of your children. And so it's incumbent upon us to be open vessels where people can feel like they can come to us and say, I need help, and not have that fear of judgment. Understanding that I feel like a lot of the challenges, people would be surprised to know that, I mean, I have gone through times where, I mean, we've lived in hotels, we have had our lights cut off, we have had cars repossessed, we have filed bankruptcy, we have been separated. And when I say we, I'm talking about my family. There's been times that I wasn't sure how I was going to get uniforms for my kids. And so when you see the finished product, don't assume that there wasn't a journey along the way to, and I'm still not finished, to get there. And I share those stories, not for sympathy, but I share those stories with other women so openly because I want them to know that whole Me Too thing of like, there's very few things that you can tell me that I cannot relate to. And if it's in my ability to help, I want to help.
Yes, I love that. And I think it benefits us even just as women, as moms, to reflect just on our journey of where we've come from, you know, and I'm so grateful for you being so vulnerable and transparent, right, about some of your experiences during motherhood, and for people to be like, oh, dang, because I'm sure it's people that's going to be like, I didn't realize that you experienced that, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know, but for them to take a step back to be like, we all are in the same boat, regardless of how it may look at what we're standing in present day. Like many of us journeys to motherhood and where we're at right now have been one. Because I know for me, it has, like a single mom of 2 kids, wondering how I was going to do it. Like I've had my lights cut off too. You know, like I've had it where like, oh, I don't have enough money for me to eat, so I'm going to make sure my babies eat. You know what I mean? And so like I understand that struggle where you know, I realized, okay, I can't guilt or shame another mother for that struggle. Because, you know, just things happen in life. And I think for us just being empathetic and compassionate about that, which I'm hoping during this time, many of us are slowly developing more of that for other people. It's just that compassion.
Right. And just know that, you know, we all have moments of feeling like we have failed. And so I have found the key is to fail forward. So I remember sitting in a hotel with my kids on rollout beds and cooking on a little, you know, it's like in an extended stay situation and just working. And I didn't stop working, and I didn't stop showing up at school, and I didn't stop helping them with their homework, and I didn't stop cooking dinner. And so it's like and I didn't stop creating this environment of love and support that, you know, I didn't become like this angry mother. They didn't put us in the position. I didn't even try to put us in the position. And so life happens. Shift happens. And so like, that's like what a shift happens, and it can happen unexpectedly. Now, you get older, you get smarter, you put some things in place, some savings, some things, and credit and all of that. And so hopefully shift's still going to happen, but hopefully shift don't have to hit the fan like that. And, you know, I went through a divorce, and I went through so many things that, you know, just turned into an avalanche. And I went through some health issues and unexpected and times off work. And so all of those things happen, but I believe it all happened so I could share that story with someone else, and so I could be more relatable to other people.
Yes, that's it. That's it right there. And it's so funny that we're even like having that conversation, because I could tell you people, like, even if some of my friends are on this live, I don't think none of them knew that I had my lights off, or I had struggled to figure out, okay, I'm gonna be okay, but I'm gonna make sure my babies eat. Right. But, you know, this is something new for many of them, and I'm sure they're gonna be like, girl, I ain't know that. Yeah, you know, because you're like, what? As a mama too, right? I think sometimes we put on that persona, I got it, I'm gonna do it all, I'm gonna make it happen, do what it gotta do, and not want to reach out to people. Because I'm not gonna lie, when I didn't reach out to people, it was because of that shame, right? Like, but like, you're so smart, you're this, you're that, like,
right, you got all those degrees, girl, you got all the degrees. You got a city job. We energies don't care.
They don't care at all. You hear me?
At all.
But being able to just go through that again makes me relatable, right? To the people, to the women, to the parents that are watching this and will watch the replay to understand, you know, there's more on that other side, but also for those that may not have kids or understand how it works. Because I think sometimes, you know, people, you know, who may not have kids can just like automatically be like, oh, well, parents should do this, that, or the third. You know, why are you letting your kids do that? Blah, blah, blah. But not understanding all the struggles that parents have to face themselves. So I'm hoping that people just really understand, like having that grace and compassion.
Right.
As parents, as mamas, dads too, you know.
Right. It's nothing like, you know, your kid bringing a field trip slip home and you not having the $9 or the $15 because you need to buy groceries. But your kid is looking at you with big eyes of everybody in the class is going on the field trip. And so, you know, that is a real and a relevant thing. Or, you know, my kids go to a small Christian school, my younger kids. And so, you know, it's like this rite of passage every year to pull all your school supplies out with your name on it. And it's like, if you don't got the fancy folders and the Trapper Keeper and this and that, like, what's up with you? And so, like, that's a big thing every year. John asked a great question, though, and I don't want to lose this because we only got a few minutes left. He said, imagine when you have two people who are in a relationship who were designed to help each other, but don't know how to ask for help. They can be right beside each other, but be worlds apart. My husband and I lived that for many years, where we could have helped. We didn't have to end up in some of the predicaments that we ended up in if we would have just had better communication with one another. And so I think that it's very relevant what John is saying, because I didn't even know how to ask for help in my own household, and neither did he. I think for him, it was the man thing and the expectations for him as a man. And for me, it was the independent Black woman thing and how I was raised as a child of I can choose my, you know, so then when things went bad, it's like, well, I can do bad by myself. So if it's going to be bad, you know, and so now we've gotten to this place of learning like that we're in this together, and neither one of us should want for anything because usually the other one has it. And so we have to run this collective household and this connected household so we can be better for us and our kids.
Yes, I love that team approach, you know, and I know it's going to be probably some mamas, but what if you don't have that, right? You're a single mom, you know, but then I think you just look at who is in your tribe where you can connect to or have that relationship with, and you guys support each other.
It may be your mother. You know, I remember asking my husband's grandmother. She ran a daycare for 30 years, and you know and my husband's mom was a single mother raising him, and she said, you know, everybody has a village if they allow one, and so the answer to the question is still the same. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your aunt, it could be a sister, it could be a best friend. You know, hopefully it's somebody. But if no one knows, we have not because we ask not. You know, I tell my oldest son, he's fiercely independent. I'm super proud of him, lives on his own, pays all his own bills. But, you know, there are times when the pandemic hit, for example, when unemployment wasn't coming fast enough, he got furloughed, he had bills, and him and his girlfriend came to the house. And I said, does he have food at his house? And she said, no, but you know he's not going to tell you. And so he went upstairs to talk to his brother. And when he came downstairs, I had just went through my pantry and my refrigerator and everything and packed all this food for him. But then I used it as an opportunity to have a conversation with him of, you should not be hungry. You should not have food. I'm your mom. You have a mom, a dad, a stepdad, like we have the ability to, you did not do this to yourself. And he's like, Mom, you know, I don't like asking people for anything. And this has been a struggle for him. And I'm trying to help him get past this at almost 22, because I'm like, you're going to have a way harder life than you have to have if you don't get past this. And I don't know, what did I do as a parent that made him stop asking?
No, you know what? It's funny because if you think about him, have you shown like this strong Black woman? I'm going to make it happen by any means. And again, that's not anything wrong. But again, our kids learn by what they see us do, even if we aren't saying anything. So if you've been showing like, you know, I make it happen. Great, you're not saying that. But, you know, you pull up and you got the things they need and it happens, boom, boom, boom. So for him, he's probably thinking, it got to be in me too. So if she can do it by herself, I know I can.
That's good. That's good. But then now what do I do?
You continue to have that conversation, maybe giving those examples of, man, when I tried to do it by myself, it just made it twice as hard. But now that I'm able to reach out to people and lean on people, it makes that load a lot easier to carry.
I mean, I told him straight up, I said, at 43 years old, if I'm hungry and y'all hungry, I'm calling your grandfather. I'm calling your grandmother. Like, I'm not, and I'm 43. Like, I'm not going to let y'all be hungry. And they not going to let y'all be hungry. Now, my daddy going to give me a speech. This food for my grandkids, because you grown. Like, that's what he military, he hardcore. Like, that's what he going to say. Make sure he might want to send me have them send me their favorites. That's him. But at the end of the day, I told him, if at 43 years old, I have that comfort and confidence, and not that I need to use it, knowing that, I have that, I need you to know that you have that too. You have proven yourself a hard worker. You have proven yourself to be someone independent. You have proven yourself that you're not a user. You're not going to just call to be calling. And so that being said, I'm happy to help you if you find yourself in a precarious position. And so I appreciate what you said, though. And to the other strong Black mothers out there that have younger kids than mine, both of my sons are fiercely independent like that. And, now I've got another one leaving for college, and we dealt with this when the oldest one was at college. And that was an epiphany you just gave me, because I'm like, why won't they ask? Like, literally, my 18-year-old, he has a job. He's got a bank account, debit card. I'll drop him off at school when school was open, or take, you need money. He's like, no, I got money. I'm like, you got money? Kid, when I was in high school, it didn't matter if I had money. Like, I was texting my dad's money too. Right. And so, it's bittersweet, because I'm very proud of the strong men they are, but I also don't want them to find themselves in a tough spot and feel like they can't ask.
Yeah. And I think just continue to have that conversation and let them know, we're here for you. You asking for help doesn't make you any less of a man.
And I love that. I've been watching them a lot this week. I love Bishop Jakes always says, he tells his son-in-laws, like, if you don't like them no more, you don't with them, they can come home. And, and I say that to my kids, like, you can come home, and my husband is looking at me like, where they gonna go? I don't know. We gonna figure it out. I'm like, they work hard, they smart, they can come home. And I love what John said, that, he said when his son asked him something, he says, if you have questions, come to me and ask. And I think that's so critical for a dad. And it doesn't just come to me. My ex-husband is a pretty hardcore dad. He's a loving dad. He's a caring dad. He's a giving dad. But in his thought of how you raise a man, he's not going to do something unless they come to him and ask. And I'm talking about like, oh, Father, would you mind, it's like, so, now you have that level too of how do I ask, dealing with that.
Oh, yeah. So then for them, they might just be like, it's easier for me just to figure it out and do it on my own.
So anything that, you want to end with, there's a lot of Blacks and whites trying to figure out how to be better allies, what to do during this heavy time with George Floyd's murder this week, with Ahmaud's murder. And just with the heaviness of, this, like the murders aren't new, the filming is, and, and as a matter of fact, I tell my kids all the time, it actually is probably happening less than it did, because they were lynching us whenever they felt like it, all day, every day. And so what do you say to our allies, and what do you say, especially to Black men? I like my husband, these type of things make him very heavy. What do you say to them from a therapeutic perspective of how to channel those feelings?
Yeah. To our allies, I would ask them to think about what platform or what authority do they have where they can begin to make those small changes. Whether it's just continuing to use their platform on social media to educate people on the importance of Black lives and why it's important for everyone to know why Black lives matter, or will they show up to those meetings, because let's be honest, right? Many of them have more open doors or open paths to have a voice compared to us. And so how will you use that voice? Will you just be silent, but yet like on the sideline to your friend, I understand. Like what difference is that making? So be bold with it. Be okay, right? Like, because at the end of the day, we're gonna side with you when you speak out for us. We got your back. You know? So I would really challenge them to really be bold and be okay with just stepping out and using their platform to express that and figuring out ways to start within their community of making a difference. And then for our Black men, you know, because I have a Black son, and so, you know, we've been talking about this all week with him. And, you know, for our Black men, man, one, like, I love y'all for real, you know, but for them too, it's okay to cry, right? Because it's heavy. So it's okay to cry. But then after that, how do you want to focus that energy? You know, like what differences are you wanting to make or see? And maybe it's starting with getting together our young Black boys, doing stuff with them to help them up, you know. So how, and maybe challenging, how will you leave a legacy even beyond your family, but your community? What legacy will you leave with them as well? So
that's good. Well, Lakeisha, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. I love your wisdom. I love your heart. And you guys, I please connect with her and follow her. She is always on the news nationally and locally, as well as working in our community. And she's just an amazing counselor. And I appreciate you. Have an amazing day. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.